This is the A.C.E Football Academy. I am Coach Dunham again with Coach Hamilton. Today we've got a little interesting information. We are going to go over the European Leagues preview, discussing our top leagues that we like to watch. We're going to get into starting dates, matches, maybe some input that's going on here. A lot of stuff is starting up this coming weekend, so a big weekend and a lot of the big clubs. No major matches to look into, so we're really looking at specific teams to look at. Previously, over the summertime, we've looked at a lot of the transfers. We're not really looking into specific transfers in this little conversation here, but mainly getting info of what's going on in our leagues, what we're looking forward to watching, and again, we like to predict which teams we think is going to win, on our own favorite teams as well. So I'm looking forward to the kickoff for this week.
Yeah, it's always fun. I think for both of us, the club season has started and it's here, and so everything's kind of starting back up for the fall seasons, and it is a lot of fun. Some differences, overseas this year, and we'll talk about those. Interested. I know we're not going to spend a ton of time on it today because we have spent so much time on it in past episodes, but interested to see how the Saudi Arabia League unfolds this year and things like that. So let's dive right into it.
Yeah, interesting thing about the Arabian League, which we'll tie into in future episodes. There's already coaches asking FIFA to look into their transfer window, their, fair clause type of situations here. So
and they're going to have to. They're going to have to do something.
There's so much money in that league. It's going to become very dangerous if FIFA does not get involved.
Right.
But moving on here, we're going to, as usual, start off with La Liga. Again, you can catch them on ESPN, ESPN Plus, and we're believing Hulu. We have not verified that just yet, but definitely ESPN Plus. Their first match day will be August 11th, which is this Friday. And, by the time you watch this, the weekend will already happen, but August 11th is the start date. Barcelona, defending champ. Any good matches coming on that week?
Looks like Villarreal and Real Betis will play that week one, kind of a fun game, probably two teams you want to keep your eye on, but for me in this league, it is Barcelona until somebody knocks them off, until somebody displaces them.
Yeah, the interesting is Real Betis was making a push into the top four, so I'll be curious to watch if they can push into the top 4, 3. I'm not saying they're going to challenge Real Madrid or Barcelona, but maybe they can get some frustrations and take away some points in some of those big games to see how that goes.
Yeah, and I think Real Sociedad is another team you might want to keep an eye on. You never know. Again, early on, everybody thinks they got a chance, but I think those teams will be fun and could play a factor in how this unfolds. But as you said, it's Barcelona and Real Madrid until somebody proves us otherwise.
Absolutely. Next league is, of course, Bundesliga, the German Giant League. Catch them on ESPN, ESPN Plus. I know I've caught many games on ESPN. Mainly they put on Bayern Munich and Dortmund, which is not surprising. Their first match is not until August 18th. Of course, we know Bayern Munich winning the league last season on the final day of matches.
Right.
Be curious to see if that is still going to be a close competition to the first place race between Bayern Munich and Dortmund. And I'm curious to watch, can RB Leipzig make an even bigger push this season?
Another step,
cause more frustrations at the top. Can they push them to the top 2, maybe even the top position? I'm very anxious to see how well they do this year.
Yeah, and the game we're going to kind of keep an eye on that August the 18th first match is Leverkusen and RB Leipzig. Two teams that kind of what you said, are they going to take that next step, or are we going to see a regression? And you never know with teams like that, and with the transfer portal and everything. It'll be interesting to see how that unfolds.
Yeah, and Bayer Leverkusen was mid-table last year, so I'm not sure what kind of transactions they made over the summertime, but can they also make a push?
Yeah.
Moving on to Serie A, again, catch them on CBS Sports and Paramount. Their first matchup will be August 19th, which I believe is a Saturday. Defending champ Napoli, and we both know Napoli pretty much took it pretty early in the season.
Yeah, I was just trying to pull that up. I think they ended up winning it by like 13 or 14 points or something
Absolutely,
like that.
very easily. Very much kind of like Premier League in Manchester City, just dominating. Curious if they as well can carry on their winning ways. Week 1 matchups, anything going on here?
Just with AC Milan, a lot of the American talent playing for them, so it'll be interesting to see them and really not even just week 1, but how that unfolds for them. You saw it a little bit with who last season had all the American players, Leeds. It didn't work out very well for them.
Right.
So different league, different circumstances, but I'm interested to see how AC Milan does this year.
Yeah, we've got Tim Weah and Christian Pulisic now playing in Serie A, AC Milan and Juventus respectively there. So curious to watch the Americans and how well they do. I believe Weston McKennie is also in Serie A as well.
Yes, that is correct.
So be sure to watch in Serie A, catching the Americans, see how well they do. We would love to see them progress and a more approaching world-class style of play. Not expecting it to happen, but we would like to see some improvement there with players. Moving on to our favorite league, the English Premier League. Catch them on NBC Sports, USA, and stream them on Peacock. Their start date is Friday, August 11th. Manchester City getting the three-peat as champions. Can they do the unspeakable 4 in a row?
Right.
You can't put it past them. However, they've lost some significant players, and there's thought they may lose a few more. Curious what's going to happen here with Manchester City. Can they continue their dominance in the Premier League?
Yeah, it's to me, I look at it, just we talked about with Barcelona and Real Madrid, until somebody proves that they can knock them off. But I think this is a little different. As you said, Manchester City's dealing with some exits of some players. I think the rest of the league got better for the most part, especially those top teams. Maybe this is a little homer of me, but I think Arsenal has gotten better this offseason.
Oh, absolutely.
I think without the injury to Jesus kind of towards the middle and the back end of that, I think
really
maybe that
momentum.
run. I think maybe that run looks a little different.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Manchester City still doesn't win it, still doesn't catch them, but I don't think they win it by 4 or 5 points. Excuse me. So I'm really, really interested to see how this goes. And then you have the teams that were used to being at the top of that table, like Chelsea, who just really, really struggled last year. So real interesting for this league to get started and see what's going to happen.
Yeah, speaking of Arsenal, they picked up Declan Rice, and they're bringing back a few other players. I think they brought in Havertz as well.
Yeah.
Interesting enough, they won the contract of a 15-year-old phenom, and they gave him a 2-year scholarship. So when he turns 17, he can sign a professional contract.
Oh, wow.
So it'll be interesting to follow if he makes it into the first team prior to getting that professional contract. Again, 15 years old, 15 and a half, something like that. So be watching them. Chelsea, like you said, bringing in Mauricio Pochettino.
Right.
He was very successful at Tottenham. Can he continue that at Chelsea? He's already lost quite a few Chelsea players. Obviously, he's trying to bring in his guys and rebuild. So I want to see how well he revamps Chelsea back into prominence.
That's a great word. Chelsea needed a revamping too.
Absolutely.
I think they ended up finishing like 10th, 11th, 12th, something like that last year. But that was, they weren't great hardly at any point last season. So the revamp for them, I think it's encouraging. I think if you're a Chelsea supporter, you are encouraged by that. And if nothing else, just something new, something different.
Yeah, any Chelsea supporters listening to this, you can go ahead and blame Frank Lampard for really screwing things up for Chelsea. And I'll be surprised that the ownership allowed him to come back after his disastrous session there and brought him back a second time, and it wasn't any better.
Right.
And so I blame Frank Lampard for the destruction of Chelsea. But Pochettino is a proven winner, and it may not be this season. I don't think they'll get top 4, but I say in the next 2 years, Chelsea's going to be back up in the top 4, ready to go. Next team to watch here is Liverpool. Of course, the last 2 seasons, they brought in a lot of reinforcements in their forwards position. They got Gakpo, Luis Diaz, Jota came in a few years ago. Their strike force is pretty
should be set.
Impactful.
Yeah.
Midfield was the problem. Let a few guys go as free agents. A couple of kids went away to the Saudi League.
Yep.
They did sign 2 new midfielders. They could probably use another one for some depth, but right now they're depending on some youngsters.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. They just went younger. Whether it works out or not, we'll find out. But I do think it was a time for a change for Liverpool in the midfield, especially as you mentioned. And I mean, I think both of those kids they brought in are like 24, 25 years old.
Yep.
So definitely a change going on in Liverpool as well.
Yeah, and the big thing I'll be watching there with Liverpool is Trent Alexander-Arnold. Is he going to stay on the right back where he struggled last year as far as defending goes? Is he going to swing into that center 3 in the midfield and give them a new pace at that position here?
Yeah. Are there any, I'm just going to pull it up real quickly. Are there any of the promoted teams that you're interested in seeing in the Premier League? Normally they struggle that first year. But is anybody who's you're interested in, want to see them play?
I mean, I'm going to watch all of them go through. None of them have stood out as doing a lot. Of course, they don't have the money and the funds to make big transfers. I can't say there's anybody there.
Yeah.
I can say Luton, but I don't see Luton doing anything this season.
Right,
In fact,
right.
I expect them to finish dead last. Other than that, Manchester United, they brought in their, I don't know how to pronounce the guy's last name, Haaland, something like that. He's supposed to be the Erling Haaland for their team. United didn't have a great summer as far as wins, but of course, you're mixing and matching things there, but I see United finishing top 4 this season, so I'll be interested to see how well they do. But anyway, moving on to Premier League. Any final thoughts on the Premier League there as far as teams go for you?
Team-wise, probably not. Bournemouth was kind of fun towards the end of the year last year, surprised some people. Brentford was a lot of fun last season, surprised some people.
Right.
Again, can as we talked about in other leagues, can teams like that find a way to take the next step and shake up that top 6, 7 position, or are they going to remain in that 9th, 10th, 11th position, just kind of the mid-table?
Right.
So would love to see a team like that shake some things up, get some new blood at the top of that league. It feels like it's the same 5 or 6 every year.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm just ready to get the season going.
Yeah, I think last year Newcastle was kind of the surprise push.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to be watching Brighton. They were, I think, 7th or 6th in the season, had a nice push through the season. Can they push into at least the top 6 to get Europa?
Right.
And I'll be watching them closely. Some interesting news here. Again, this is A.C.E Football Academy. I am Coach Dunham. This is Coach Hamilton. We are bringing you the latest news on the European big leagues for the 2023-2024 season. Thank you again for joining us. Some new information here is we're staying with the Premier League, and there are some new rules that are going to be implemented this season. I think you and I discussed previously there is a new offsides rule. But that is only going to be played in some smaller leagues across Europe. That's not going to be implemented in the big top-notch leagues here. So we're going to be anxious to follow how that
I really want to see how that
gets
goes.
implemented through the season here, or through the following years, I guess. But here in the Premier League, some new rules that will be implemented here. The first one that I think is long overdue, and the players have already been thankful of it, is a winter break.
Right.
Come in January, February timeframe of 2024, they're going to get 2 weeks of no games, and I think it's going to benefit the entire league.
Yeah, it has to. And and they do those. They do the international breaks, and they do the the MLS All-Star break, and things like that. But that doesn't affect whole teams. A lot of those guys are still training, are still playing because they're not on the international squads.
Right.
So this is going to be something that just gives you a chance to regroup and breathe and take a couple weeks off.
Yeah, and we discussed this in our World Soccer Roundup. Well, the MLS trend of a month-long Leagues Cup tournament, no season games at all.
Yeah.
Will that become a trend and follow into Europe and possibly benefit their league in a different way?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to see that. I think that would be a lot of fun.
The second rule coming into the Premier League is a change in time accumulation for each half. We all know you get +2, +3 because of substitutions. Maybe there was an injury. Now, goal celebrations, injuries, and any other delay where the ball is not in play, those seconds and minutes will be added to each half of every game now.
I think this is too much. And I mean, you and I talked before we came on air, and we're going to talk about it again now. I think when it comes to stoppage time, when it comes to extra time, there are so many other ways to do it. And this would be way down on my list of things to do it. I mean, you're going to end up with 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 minutes of extra time. And I think that's too much. I mean, you want to go back to talking about taking the 2-week break and players needing the break. Well, you know what else they don't need? They also don't need to be playing 60-minute halves.
Yeah, right.
But, here we are. Like I say, I would do it differently. Whether I think there's two ways you could do it. I think you could just get rid of it. I mean, and say, hey, we're done with stoppage time. We're going to play. Make it 48 minutes, and I know that messes with the integrity of the game and things like that, but just get rid of it. You say, hey, look, we're done. We're not doing stoppage time anymore.
Right.
Or, as you mentioned, just stop the clock. Why does it have to be a running clock?
And here in America, and I don't know how European youth clubs play their games, but in high school, the clock gets stopped at certain points of the game, whether somebody just scored a goal or there's injury time, or the ref just says, hey, stop the clock. I've got to have a conversation with the coach or the captain or something like that. Why can't we implement that type of situation where when there's a delay, the clock stops?
Yeah.
And now you can absolutely get rid of extra time. The other thing I love about this is when that clock starts counting down for about 30 seconds and it's a 1-1 game or it's a 2-1 game, you see the intensity drive up because you can see the clock count down.
Yeah. And just, is there going to have to be some gamesmanship, and is the referee going to have to take on some more responsibility? Probably. As you mentioned, the referee has that ability here in the States to stop the clock. And so if there is an injury and we can tell, okay, this injury is going to linger for a little bit, boom, I'm going to stop the clock.
Right.
So there will be some gamesmanship and if you're going to stop the clock, but I just feel like that is a quick and rather easy fix.
I can see this being a frustrating point for coaches because really, once you're at that +10, that can become +15.
Yeah.
Now you really don't know when he's going to blow his whistle.
Yep. And what happens if you're at, okay, we get into extra time and it's, +8 minutes. And then 5 minutes in, somebody turns an ankle, and now they're down for another 3.
Absolutely.
And now here we are we going, and just, I don't know, it's going to get messy.
You and I could go on.
Yeah.
We're clearly irritated with this rule, I think this is going to bomb, and I hope they fix their problem because we can see it's going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Next rule coming up has to do with penalty kicks, not the kicks themselves. It's reference to the goalkeepers. We have seen goalkeepers do delay tactics numerous times, walking up and touching the ball, walking up and talking smack to the kicker, walking off to the far sideline. Well, now they can be penalized for delaying the game or what they're calling for unfair behavior that distracts the kicker or something that fails to show respect to the game.
I'm interested to see how this is going to work. Again, is it going to be? I think I don't mind this rule, but I think when you do rules like this, they become so subjective based on who the official is, or based on how is this going to be? Who decides if it's unfair? who decides if it's
I was just
respect
about to make the
to
same
game?
comment.
You know,
It's another. I'm sorry, to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
It's another rule where it's a ref's perspective. You could have 5 refs,
Yep.
and they handle it 5 different ways.
Yeah.
If you want to make this kind of a rule, you make it very clear. Number 1, keeper cannot walk up and touch the ball. 2,
Yep.
keeper cannot say a word to the kicker.
Yeah.
3, the keeper cannot leave the field
The goal
or the
box.
penalty box.
Yeah.
Period.
Yep.
And now you've just eliminated that
Absolutely.
subjective part of the game.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I don't know, when I played, I always ran my mouth a little bit, and I do think
I don't mind a little bit of smack talk.
I do think there, you don't want it to just go away because then it changes the game.
Right.
But not even the running the mouth to the players, and these professionals are good enough where that kind of stuff doesn't bother most of them.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's the I gotta walk way over here and grab my water. And I'm going to come all the way back to talk to my kicker. That's when it gets like, good grief. And you want to talk about extra time. Goodness gracious. Again, I like this rule, but it's going to be very interesting to see how
are they going to properly get the refs to address the situation? Because I'm not going to card a keeper for saying, hey, dude, you're going to blow this.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I bet you're nervous. Or send them up to your mama. Something stupid to get them off their minds.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm not irritated with it as much as I am with the time previously, but this can be handled a bit differently, I believe.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next rule is concerning unsporting behavior. I'm not really sure how to perceive this, but they're talking about reducing the amount of red cards on certain tackles. So again, another thing where it's subjective to each ref, where if the ref believes the player was making some kind of attempt for a ball, that he can know he will not be given a red card if it gave a head injury or an ankle injury or he stepped on his ankle. I despise this rule because, of course, I've not seen the wording and how the refs are going to look at it. It's just too subjective, and it's going to rub a lot of the players the wrong way here.
Yeah, and I just think, are we trying to get rid of the red? I mean, and you and I have had, one of our very first episodes, we talked about implementing that blue card or whatever we said.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I just want to know what the thought process is behind that. Are we trying to get rid of the red card? Are we trying to create more tackle? I mean,
because it's not preventing injuries in any way.
No.
You're just preventing the amount of red cards, which I don't recall many red cards to begin with.
I would have to look,
The only thing I assume is that there have been red cards given, and then they review the game and say, we probably could have been handled a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Well, then just get rid of the red card.
Well, and then why can't we say, like the NFL does it, all the other major leagues do it, why can't FIFA say,
you're getting fined,
but the red card has been rescinded and you're good to go next week?
Absolutely. Or after the game, now you've gotten rid of the red card. Now FIFA comes back and says, you know what, that's an ejectable offense.
Yeah.
You're now suspended for 1, 2, or 3 games because of that.
I think that would be fine.
Yeah. This one irritates me a little bit because it's too subjective. Next rule has to deal with the technical area. This isn't really a big deal here. I thought it was already a rule where one head coach and one other
assistant
member of the staff can be in the technical area with the coach, which I already thought that was a rule.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not understanding what's going on here, so we're moving on. Yeah. Next one deals with technology on the sidelines. They are not allowed to use technology to refute a call during a game. This is also trying to prevent certain behaviors from coaches or language getting thrown at the refs, which I get, and I agree. If you look at the replay on the sideline right after it happened and you see a different angle, you can't yell at the ref. Yeah. It's just where he was at that time.
Yep.
And it's why we have VAR.
Yeah, and then that is 100% what I was going to say. These what I don't want to see is just, and again, it's happened in almost every major sport. I don't want to get into these challenges, or now coaches can make challenges and things like that. That's what the VAR is for. We just saw in the USA-Sweden women's game, that final PK that just millimeters across the line.
Oh, yeah.
That's what the VAR is for.
Absolutely.
I don't need you as coach to tell me that went in or that didn't go in, okay? Because guess what? If you're Sweden's coach, you're going to tell me it went in.
Right.
If you're the American coach, you're going to tell me it didn't go in. So let's let VAR handle.
I was going to say the exact same thing. It takes away the argument.
Yeah.
And I find it hilarious, even after VAR, the teams are still surrounding the ref. Like,
I know.
That's not what happened. The guy's like, I just watched it.
Yeah.
There's no refuting what I just watched.
I just watched it from multiple different angles. I saw it.
As well as me discussing it with the 3 other guys up in the booth, they also saw it. So
I know.
It's goofy stuff, but I have no issue with this.
No,
I
me
actually
either.
love
Me either.
that they're announcing this. The last rule here, I think, is the greatest thing that they've made decisions on, and it has to do with the fans in the stadiums. So the Premier League, the league itself, can now take legal action against fans for using offensive slogans like on banners hung up or waving flags, as well as inappropriate or racist chants in stadiums. I think when we watched Mexico versus USA, huge problem of Mexicans giving homosexual slurs towards whoever. I'm not sure it's even directed at one specific person, but this is what they're trying to get rid of, and especially attacks towards specific players on opposing teams.
Well, and you bring up the USA-Mexico game earlier this year, where the referee stopped the game. You recall, the game. I mean,
I remember that.
It was already out of reach. I think they're already in stoppage time, but he just said, "You know what? Boom, we're done." And
Well, he also gave announcements.
Yes. Right. Yeah. It wasn't like he said, "Boom, we're done."
Right.
Like, he stopped in like the 80th minute and said, "Hey, we're not doing this," and they got it going again, and then the chant started again. Late or it was in stoppage time, and he just, "Boom, we're done, game over," and it doesn't sound like that's what the Premier League is moving towards, but I do think it's a step in that direction where they're eventually going to say, "If you don't hush, we're not going to play."
Yeah. See, this is interesting. So there's 2 sides of what happened at Mexico-US game. When you're stopping a game and having fans leave the stadium, I worry about fights going on between opposing fans. I like that they can take legal action afterwards when things have died down, the game is over. I think this is a great way to approach this. And now you can tell, let's say it was first game of the season, Chelsea versus Liverpool, and the Chelsea fans are making racist comments to a Liverpool player. Well, now the game's over, they can come back and saying, your team's being fined X amount of dollars, and your ticket sales have to be cut in half, where the first 20 rows of your stadium have to be empty.
Yeah, well, and that's what you're going to have to do. I mean, if you really want this to go away, you're going to have to start punishing teams financially.
Absolutely.
And that will get rid of all. Well,
Absolutely.
It won't get rid of all of this because some people are morons, but
And they get drunk.
Yep. But for the most part, you'll be able to get rid of this.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, a lot of great rules here, and I'm looking forward to a couple of them. Some we both are irritated with, so we'll be following those throughout the season here. We're going to end our podcast today with our predictions of some of the top leagues. So let's start with La Liga, Coach. Who's your champion or top 3 for La Liga?
I mean, Barcelona, Real Madrid.
You get them Barcelona 1-2?
I do.
Okay.
I'm going to take them 1-2.
All right.
And then give me. I'll take Real Betis. I'll take Betis to finish third.
I as well. I'm taking Barcelona, followed by Real Madrid. No one's really competing with them.
Yeah.
I haven't heard much going on with La Liga and other transactions here. I'm going to go with Real Sociedad.
Okay.
They kind of finished pretty strong. We'll see what happens. I'm not confident in that third place, but we'll leave it at that. Bundesliga. Bayern Munich, Dortmund, you got Leipzig, you had Union Berlin that played well last season, as well as S.E. Freiburg that played well. I'll take first pick here.
Sure.
I don't see Dortmund winning it. I think they've lost a couple players. They lost Jude Bellingham, which is a massive loss for them. I don't see Dortmund even finishing in the top 2.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm going to give Munich the championship again. They're always loaded.
Yeah.
I want to say Leipzig sneaks in to the top 2 position. And I'm going to give an unknown to number 3. I don't think it's going to be Dortmund as well. I don't know who I'm going to place there, but that's what I'm going with there for Bundesliga.
Yeah, I'm going to agree that Bayern wins it, Munich wins it. Just, again, one of those things where I agree that Dortmund is going to fall off. I don't know if it's as drastic as you are predicting, but I think the top half of that league has potential to be really fun.
Absolutely.
With, you mentioned Union Berlin and Freiburg and Leipzig. So I'm going to go Bayern, Leipzig, Union Berlin.
All right, moving on to Serie A. We know Napoli pretty much manhandled the league last year. Do you see any changes in Serie A this season?
No, when it's that big of a gap, it's hard to. You hope it's a little more competitive down the stretch, but it's hard to take anything different than what you saw last season.
Yeah. Do you have a second or third place, or you just stick with Napoli here?
I think Napoli wins it pretty easily, excuse me. We kind of mentioned A.C. Milan earlier. Very interested to see what they look like.
Absolutely.
I think it would be fun to have them in contention. So, Juventus played well at times last year. So, probably those two teams, AC Milan, they're going to look drastically different this season, I think. So it'll be interesting to see how they play.
Yeah, I'm actually going to say Napoli is not winning.
Oh, okay.
This season, I'm actually going to give it to Inter Milan.
Okay.
I think they continue on what they did last season.
And they finished
well in the
third
Champions League
season,
as well.
Right? Inter finished third.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah, that is correct.
So I'm going to go Inter Milan, Napoli, and then AC Milan, I think, has made some nice changes here. I'm interested to see how they do. I don't know if Juventus gets in that top 3 just yet, but those are my top 3 for Serie A.
The team, I've just pulled up the standings here from last season, the team neither one of us even mentioned, who finished second last year, is Lazio.
True.
I just don't know enough about them to be comfortable with, you've heard things from Inter and from AC and from all these teams. You haven't heard a whole lot from them this offseason.
Yep.
So that is my hesitation on them.
Moving on to our favorite league, Premier League here. You being an Arsenal fan who has had a great summer.
We have.
And a great 22-23 season. I myself a Liverpool fan. What are you taking as your top 4?
Okay.
Because we know top 4 will move on the Champions League. That's usually the big deal here. Who you taking top 4, 1, 2, 3, 4?
I'm going to take Arsenal to win it.
Okay.
I think they've made enough changes. I think they showed 80% of last season that they were the team to beat.
Yeah.
Again, maybe it's a little bit of a blind eye, looking at it with a blind eye, but I truly think that Jesus getting hurt just completely changed their end of their year. So if we're assuming that everybody stays healthy and all that stuff, so
absolutely. Yeah.
I will take Arsenal. I think the top 2 stay the same. I think it's Arsenal, Man City, but I think they're flipped this season. I think Newcastle stays hot. I'm going to say Newcastle finishes 3rd, and United. Well, you know what? I'll be different. Liverpool 4th, United 5th.
Okay. So I don't disagree with you at all. I think City and Arsenal, again, are going to fight for first and second place here. They have the full rosters here. Yeah. The only caveat to that is how City ends their transfer window. Are they going to lose somebody like Silva, Kyle Walker? They've already lost Gundogan.
Yeah.
They've lost Mahrez. So are they going to lose more players? And that's going to be an issue if you got a whole new lineup that you're dealing with here. But I'm going to go with Arsenal. I think they've just got it ready to go. Bringing on Declan Rice is the move of the season for them.
Massive.
And he is going to change them. I don't know. I've watched Liverpool for years. So back in the early 2000s, they had Xabi Alonso on Liverpool, and that's how I see Declan Rice. Just dominating as a defensive mid position, creating chaos. I would love to see him play that same role there. So I'm going Arsenal, Manchester City. I'm taking Liverpool third. The caveat there is they need to pick up another midfielder before I think they can hold that spot. They've got the strike force to do it. Can their defense hold throughout the whole season? And fourth place, unfortunately, as much as I despise Manchester United, I think they've picked up some quality, and those are my top four for the season.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Like I say, that makes Saturday mornings a lot of fun, and I'm ready to get started next weekend.
This is your ACE Football Academy. This is our European Pro League preview. Please watch those games. Any questions, any comments, please catch us on our Facebook page. I am Coach Dunham. This is Coach Hamilton, and we'll catch you next time.